Hi, this is Pat Johnson, your psychology instructor, and in this mini lecture we're going to talk about descriptive research, and then in particular we're going to start out with talking about the descriptive research called the case study. Now, what is descriptive research? Well, descriptive research is a type of research where we just describe what's going on. In other words, we're not saying what caused something to happen. We're not even telling about the relationship between variables. We're merely just stating what happened. So the purpose of descriptive research is to describe what's going on. And one type of descriptive research is the case study. And case studies are really interesting because in a case study, we're studying one individual or a small group of people, but we're taking that one individual and trying to infer about all of us. In other words, the purpose of a case study is generalization, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But for discussion purposes, let's start out with some examples. In a previous mini lecture, we talked about the very sad example of David Reimer. And if you remember, and if you went to YouTube and looked at David Reimer's all the YouTubes about him, all the documentation about him, you can remember that David Reimer was that young boy who, as an infant, had a botched circumcision, and how he was raised as a girl and how that didn't work out very successfully. So we talked about him when we talked about nature versus nurture. Another example of a case study is another situation from the last century. Jeannie was a young girl who, at the age of 18 months, she was locked into a closet by her parents, and she didn't have any human interaction for over a decade. And Jeannie didn't know how to walk, she didn't know how to talk. She was a very sad case. And when it was discovered by social services that Jeannie existed and that she had all these problems, they tried to help her, but researchers also tried to study her. That's kind of unethical because they should have focused just on helping her. But anyway, the question about Jeannie was, if somebody misses that window of opportunity as a young child to develop language, will they ever develop adult language as a later in life? So the hope in a case study is that we can generalize from one individual to all the rest of us. So the hope is generalization, but the problem is that case studies can mislead us. And why can case studies mislead us? Because it's only one person, or sometimes case studies are a small group. But it's just that one person or small group, and they may not represent everyone. We may not be able to generalize from that one person to everyone. So let's think about Jeannie for a second. Jeannie may have developed brain damage by being abused. She may have had problems before she was isolated. We can't say that we know for sure what caused her not to develop language later in life. So in this mini lecture, we've talked about descriptive research, and the purpose of descriptive research is to describe what's going on. We gave one example of descriptive research, which is called the case study. In a case study, we're discussing one individual or sometimes a small group of people, and we're trying to learn all about that individual by studying them intensely. But the problem is that while we would like to generalize to all the rest of us, it's only one person. So be very careful when reading case studies.